So I made a video a couple weeks ago on the Milwaukee Bucks and basically asked the question, is it possible this team's just not that good? Well, the last couple weeks have continued to further that thought process that this Bucks team is just not all that good of a basketball team. And that's despite Giannis playing really, really good basketball. And if they were a good team, likely being at the very top of the MVP race. I think this team has a ton of questions and not a lot of answers. And if things don't turn around quickly for the Bucks, this is a team that very quickly will find themselves, if things don't turn around very soon, probably looking at a trade market for Giannis Antetokounmpo realistically, and possibly Damian Lillard as well, although I think his market would likely be much less significant. I'm definitely, if I was a Bucks fan, I'd be scared. Let's just put it that way, plain and simple. I do not think this team is looking promising at all. Rough loss today to the Hornets, admittedly, on the last possession for the Hornets. Giannis got called for a foul on LaMelo that was not a foul. And so they got unlucky there in that situation, but they're 4-9. They would be 3-10 if not for Ron Holland missing 2 free throws in a row at the very end of regulation a few nights ago. This is not a good team, and that's despite Giannis having a triple-double tonight and averaging like 33 a game on 63% true shooting. He is having himself a typical dominant Giannis season, and yet this team still just looks terrible. And I think there's a few reasons for that, so we're going to break that down in this video. First and foremost, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trying to push towards 1,000 subscribers on this channel, get it monetized. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's hop right into it and talk about it. First and foremost, the biggest issue for this Bucks is very clear, and that is a lack of depth. And you can blame John Horst, the GM, for that. He did not go out and make significant additions this summer, only made fringe additions around the edge. Guys like Taurean Prince, DeLon Wright, and not much else were brought in to help this team. I guess Gary Trent Jr. as well. But that's pretty much all the additions that were made this summer. And honestly, Taurean Prince has been really good. He is shooting the absolute crap out of the ball. He's had a couple of really good games recently, over 50% from 3 this season. And yet they're getting amazing performance by Taurean Prince and are still struggling massively. Now, yes, Dame has missed the last 3 or 4 games, but will be back, I would think, relatively soon. And Chris Middleton has not played this season, but you can't really sit here and count on Chris Middleton to be a consistently healthy contributing NBA player at this point in his career. I don't think he hasn't shown to be that for the past, year and a half at this point. And so if you're expecting Chris Middleton to come in and be the savior of this team, I wouldn't get your hopes up too high, to be completely honest. And the honest truth about this team is they are just middle of the pack when it comes to pretty much everything. I mean, they're 19th in offensive rating, 17th in defensive rating. They're the 3rd worst team in the league when it comes to assist percentage, which is something that you can see by the way they play. It's a lot of clear out, let Giannis go to work and hope that good things happen, which, to be fair, often they do. But just overall, there are so many concerns with this team and not a lot of big positives. Because, I mean, even fully healthy, this team is probably 8 deep in a playoff series max, which I guess is all you really need to be, but it's relying on an older Brook Lopez that is becoming more and more inconsistent on a nightly basis, and other role players that are just hard to trust on a consistent basis. I really think outside of Giannis and Dame, this is a team where there's a lot more questions than there are answers in terms of guys that you can count on a night-to-night basis. I mean, I don't think this is a team that wants to be playing DeLon Wright and Andre Jackson 33 minutes a game. Pat Connaughton is not the player he was a couple years ago when they made the finals run. Bobby Portis continues to be fine, but he's not a great defensive player. And I mean, he's a good player, but he's not a great player. There's just not a ton of positives around this team. I look at the squad and I go, what is the plan for the future? Because the young guys that they've added who are supposed to help come alongside and develop into contributors next to Giannis at this not later stage of his career quite yet, but as he gets older and as he progresses towards that later stage of his career, are not developing. I mean, Chris Livingston, Tyler Smith, guys like that don't even play. DeLon Wright, no, not DeLon Wright. Sorry, Andre Jackson Jr. has not proven to do much. Marjon Beauchamp, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago, is also getting DNP CDs on a nightly basis. Who's the youth? What's the plan for this team in the future? And so maybe it won't be this season. And the one reason that I think it won't be this season for them to blow things up and just rebuild this lineup is because they play in a bad Eastern Conference And I will say things do get a lot easier in their schedule in the near future. Now, they get teams like the Bulls, the Hornets, the Heat, the Wizards, the Pistons, the Hawks, the Wizards again, the Bulls again, the Nets, just a lot of mediocre teams in the near future over these next few weeks, which will help. But if we go through this next month, which is a pretty easy section of the Bucks schedule, and let's say we play through the next month and we get to close to Christmas time and they're still 5 to 7 to 10 games under 500. Like if things were to get worse or just not get better with this roster, I seriously think we might quickly look at this team and go one of two ways. Number one, they panic and they try to quote unquote go all in and make a questionable trade to try to add assets. But the thing is, they don't have many assets to even try to do that. They've traded every single tradable first round pick and all their second round picks. I mean, they traded 5 seconds for Jay Crowder a couple of years ago just for him to come in and do nothing and never be a contributor to this roster. They don't have pieces to make trades to bring in value. So I find it hard to believe that they're going to even really realistically be able to make panic trades. So you're looking at a team with no real young talent, no real tradable assets besides your top 2 players, and a roster that is not performing and is losing or almost losing games, even against the quote unquote bad teams and the gimme teams that they should be beating. This is bad. The only saving grace for this Bucks team is that they're in the Eastern Conference, because if they were in the West, I think they would have already blown things up. I mean, it would be truly full on panic time, but I really am struggling to see a path forward for a team that is just not great on either end of the court, isn't all that well coached, which is something I haven't even really touched on in this video, but I don't feel like ever since they brought in Doc Rivers that things have gotten better on the coaching side. In fact, I think they've gotten worse. I mean, they were 30-10 under Adrian Griffin, fired him even though they were winning 3 out of every 4 games, and since then are a below 500 team. I don't understand the thought process there. This team has been not good for the better part of a year at this point, and things are not looking up. Things are looking down. I mean, these are games like tonight against the Hornets that you need to win, plain and simple. You have to be able to win these games. I mean, Giannis is probably one of the most tradable assets in the league at the end of the day. I mean, he really is. I don't know what a trade package for Giannis would look like, but I'm sure it would be very large. That's the type of guy that you could trade for a couple of pieces and major picks, kind of like a KD package a couple of years ago, where you get guys, a couple of legitimate role players, and multiple picks. Like they could get 2 or 3 valuable players and 3, 4, 5 first round picks. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, that might be the play for this Milwaukee Bucks team if things don't get better soon. And I'm not sure that Damian Lillard has as much of a trade market anymore, because he's bad defensively. Now he's been awesome offensively in the games that he's played this season. I will say that he's been very efficient and has played very well. But I think if you trade those 2 guys, you can get a ton of assets. And that might really realistically be the best play for this Bucks team at this point, because that will at least allow them to reset and try to shift their focus towards the future. The thing is, if I'm the Bucks front office and I'm the Bucks coaching staff, that's not the direction that I want to go, because if that happens, John Horst is getting fired. All of these guys, it's going to be a full reset in Milwaukee. And so I don't see that being the plan that the front office wants to go towards right now, but I'm not sure they're going to have much of a choice if things continue to go downhill. And I just realistically don't see a good plan forward for this team. And so they better pray they get their stuff together here in the near future. Fingers crossed, Chris Middleton's back soon, but he still remains without a timeline for return as far as I'm aware. Dame should be back pretty soon from his concussion, but if things don't get better soon in Milwaukee, I mean, it's already panic time. It's going to be past panic time. It's going to be time for change very, very soon in Milwaukee if things don't get better. If I was a Bucks fan, I would be really, really frustrated with this team and with this front office. It's been a rough year in Milwaukee, and it does not look like it's going to get any better. But you know what? It's the NBA. Things can change quickly. Who knows what'll happen? Hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.